Do you want my full name or?
Yep, full name.
Well, it's Philip John with one L.
Mm-hmm.
Croft.
And how old are you?
76.
76. And where do you live?
In 6 Coopers Road, Stanmore Bay.
And that's where we are at the moment, huh?
That's right.
Yeah. Perhaps you
This
could.
is like the yes/no game.
Perhaps you could take us on a tour. Take us on a tour
Sure.
when you're ready.
This is the way I live. I wanted to go up and make the bed, but Mark said, just want the way you live. Okay.
Okay.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Well, don't look at the camera. Well, this is the drinking area,
Mm-hmm.
and spent lots of wonderful times there.
Yep.
That's the kitchen, and as you can see, I still use it. I just made Mark some queen cakes. And
Let's have a
on
look
the
at those
stove-
queen cakes. Mm-hmm.
And on the stove, one of my favourite meals. And when he looked at it, he said, "Ugh, it's tripe. Every good man needs tripe." This is the spare bedroom. All ready to get into. Next time one of my kids arrives up and takes my bed. I don't know what you'd call this room. I guess it's the house. I spend most of my time. There's my art gallery over there.
And who's in there in your art gallery?
It's about time some of those photos were replaced because they're all kids now, grown up ones,
Mm-hmm.
and all the ones I've got are babies. If you want a close up, I'll tell you who they all are. That is a memorabilia. All the grandkids that come up, go down to the beach, and they bring me up a shell, paint it, or anything they find around the place that thinks unique. It finishes up there. They know I don't do any dusting.
Okay.
Right. Oh. Oh, it's too close to see all the photos, isn't it?
No, you tell. Just keep going. Keep talking. Tell me about some of the photos.
Well, from left to right, that's my great granddaughter.
Just turn that one around. That bottom one. That's it. Yeah.
Yes, that's Amy, my great granddaughter.
Mm-hmm. Keep going.
Mark and Lynn on their wedding day. Robert on his first day at Auckland Grammar.
Mm-hmm.
His sister Rebecca. Rebecca and Robert when they were babies. Dean.
Mm-hmm.
Steve and
You need your glasses on.
oh, I do. Well, I can see who it is. Steve and Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
Steve and Sarah again. Sarah. I got an idea. That's Rebecca. Rachel.
That's right. That's Rachel.
And Carol on her wedding day. And that rose bowl is one of the presents I bought for my mother years and years and years ago. Cost me 1 and 6 pence.
Hmm.
And that's about all the family.
That's your memorabilia corner.
Hmm?
Okay, onward and upward.
Onward and upward. bloody thing's still here. That's to keep the heat in and the cold out.
Hang on, Jack.
That's Stanmore Bay. One of the reasons why I love being here.
$1 million view.
$1 million view. This is the, what would you call this, mate? It's an upstairs lounge.
It was built as a lounge, huh?
Yeah, built as a lounge, yeah. The amazing part, this was a 500 square foot batch when I bought it. And this was an addition. And I did all the inside finishing myself, architraves, wallpapering and painting. This is the bedroom. As you can see, true to a bachelor, bed's not made. Why make it? Only get in at night and muss it up again. This is the bathroom. Well, there's nothing much to see in a shit house, is there?
Okay.
Okay. Right, we'll go down again.
Okay, here we are, sitting
Right.
comfortably again, ready to talk about the life and times of Jack Croft. And first of all, I'd like to talk about perhaps earliest memories. In other words, everything that happened pre-school. Where were you born?
I was born in Whangarei. Amazing that you talk about early memories because the first thing I remember was lying on the footpath in Rotorua with the sulks. And I can still remember my mother and father trying to make me come back to reality. Funny, none of my kids had that trait. They never used to throw themselves down in a temper. I couldn't go further back than that, could I?
No, that's right.
I don't quite remember being born. My father was in the army, and
When you were born?
when I was born in Whangarei.
Did you live there for the first 5 years?
I don't think so.
You probably came down to Auckland.
Yeah, no, we never came to Auckland. My earliest memory, really, are Rotorua, where we lived, Reynolds Street, which was about half a mile from Rotorua City. I remember when we sold Rotorua, on the day the auction took place, there was an earthquake, and all the crockery and cutlery that were outside on a table waiting for the auctioneer, about 60% of it got broken. Another vivid memory I have of it being a bit of a reckless hoon of a kid. Was a friend of mine in Rotorua used to come over and play with me, and my dad used to keep chickens. So we want to see what a chicken would do if you whittled on it. So this bloke Stafford and myself, we duly fiddled on the chickens. I was caught, and my father, by way of punishing me, got a cup of water, made me bend down, and he let the water trickle from the chicken's legs all over me. At that stage, I didn't realise that chickens didn't pee. Never ever pissed on a chicken again. Well, that's about all for Rotorua. I left there when I was 7. I say I left there, the family left when I was 7, and we moved up to Auckland and rented a house at 52 Dryden Street in Grey Lynn. It's not a bad memory, huh?
Very good.
I went to Richmond Road School.
Just before we get on to those schooling years, can you remember what was going on preschool in the world? Did you have any recollections or any vivid recollections of what was going on at the time?
Only little earthquakes.
Earthquakes?
No, I didn't worry about it.
Would you consider that those earlier years were very happy?
Yeah, they were happy.
You had good fun, good
Yeah.
times?
Oh yeah. Well, I was an adventurous sort of a guy. I always had fun. And I always had the ability to amuse myself.
Mm-hmm.
Always. I guess that's a trait that stands me in good stead now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need company to be happy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, looking at those school years, perhaps looking at the period between 5 and 15 years of age, you were just starting to say at the beginning of that time where you lived, and it was in Dryden Street, was it?
Mm. My father got discharged from the army, hence the reason for the move to Auckland, and he got himself a job as storeman at Whitcomb and Stevenson's in Carlton Gore Road, and we stayed there until I was about 12.
Was it a big place?
No,
Small?
it was, well, average, had 3 bedrooms.
So each of you had a bedroom?
We each had a bedroom. One of the things I do remember about Dryden Street most vividly was that I really and truly believed in Father Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Because came Christmas and I wanted a Meccano. And on Christmas Eve, my auntie Hilda and her son Dowie came to stay with us, and we put up our pillow slips, and next morning I got up about 4:30, 5 o'clock, and went out to the pillow slip, and lo and behold, my cousin Dowie, who was not mechanically minded at all, he had the Meccano. So I swapped the Meccano over into my bag. I didn't realise that I'd got all his other presents and he'd got all mine. But I won out in the deal because I got the Meccano. So.
Mm-hmm.
Well, after Dryden Street, my father was still working in Carlton Gore Road. We moved to another rented house in Eyre Street in Parnell. And naturally
We were talking about the early years.
when we moved to Eyre Street in Parnell, I changed schools and went to Newmarket School and stayed there for about a year.
What class would you have been in then?
I was in standard 3, yeah. And I stayed at Newmarket School until I was in standard 4.
Can you remember your first day of school?
No.
You can't remember.
The only thing I remember about school in Rotorua was that a little friend of ours called Lorna Bergam and we used to wag school and spend the day in the plantation by the railway station.
Even in those early years?
That's a pretty vivid memory, isn't it? Yeah. I played wag, only the once.
Can you remember your school teachers at all? Or any of your school teachers? In those early years?
No, not in the early years.
No.
I remember the odd thing that happened at school. I must have told a lie saying I only played wag once. Because I played wag at Richmond Road School and went to... Oh, I put a bit more water in. Is that thing still going?
Yes, keep looking.
And I went to a brick factory, and as luck would have it, I cut my foot. And my father wanted to know where it happened. I told him it happened at school. So he went up and stirred the headmaster up for lack of discipline, and it was found out that I didn't do it at school. I played the wag and done it, and as a result, I was hauled out in front of the whole school and given the cane. I guess I was about 8 when that happened. So, moving on from Newmarket School, we changed houses again and went to live in Seafield View Road in Grafton. So I went to Grafton School and stayed there until I got my proficiency.
What was proficiency?
Well, proficiency was, there were 2 exams, or there were 2, I guess you could say exams you had. One was competency, that's if you were just a normal below average kid and didn't pass in all the subjects, and proficiency was when you passed in all subjects. And I got my proficiency at the age of, I guess, 12 and a half, 12 and 3/4.
And is that young as that goes, or?
Oh, that was average.
Average?
Yeah, that was average.
Did you receive a certificate?
Yeah,
for
I
it?
received a certificate of proficiency.
Was that at assembly, was it, or
No,
just through the post?
I think I think they just handed them out in the classroom.
Now this was pre-Auckland Grammar, wasn't it?
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, you had to have proficiency before you could get into Auckland Grammar. And when I went to grammar, you had to sit an entrance examination. It just shows you that the quality of teaching in various schools varies. Because when I sat the examination at grammar, I flopped and finished up in the lowest form, which was modern 3D. Now the only reason was that the exam they set covered lots of material that I had never learnt at school, at primary school. So how could you expect to know things if you weren't taught them? But that didn't last very long, because I got down to learn the things that I should have learned.
What year did you go to?
I went to grammar in 1929. after the,
Were you still living in Seafield Road?
yeah,
Did you own that or rent it?
we rented it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, after the first term in grammar, where I came first in the class, that's after 3 months, having started off in the bottom form, I moved up to Modern 3B, which was 2 classes. And from then on, for my remaining 2 years of grammar, I never ever obtained a mark lower than 3rd in the class.
With these marks, etc., you didn't consider perhaps going on to university or higher education?
Well, I would have. I would have if I'd taken Latin, but seeing I was such a flop at the entrance examination, I didn't get into a Latin form, so I had to take woodwork. And despite the fact that I went up 2 forms, I couldn't go from a modern form, as they called it, up to a Latin form. So I just carried on. By this time I was a bit sick of school, as we'd moved from Seafield View Road to Shortland Flats.
Would you consider that a regret in your life?
You're sure?
The fact that you didn't make
Sure.
the most of your schooling?
Yeah, oh sure. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But don't forget there was another aspect to consider. It was in the middle of the Depression. And,
What did you have in your mind in those grammar years about what you wanted to be?
well, I always wanted to be an engineer.
Like Uncle Dick?
Yep. So much so, also getting back as to why, I was always mechanically minded. I used to make wonderful toys and that out of my mechanic. And, I used to make false teeth out of plasticine.
Mm-hmm.
Real false teeth. I used to take my own impression, make all my own teeth and fit them in. The only trouble is that I couldn't wear them. But I was always mechanically minded, and I guess if it hadn't been for the Depression, I would have been an engineer with Uncle Dick. But he had to take on a partner at his company. It was Bramley, Richard Bramley and Company. And he took a partner in called Gow and became Bramley and Gow. And because of the partner, if he'd have taken me on as an apprentice, he would have given Gow the right to take one of his family on. So it never came to pass. I guess I got a bit disillusioned with school because how shall I put it? One of the tenants of Shortland Flats came down and saw my mother to see if I would like a job as lolly boy at the Civic Theatre. And I took it. I was amazed that I had the guts to put a tray around my shoulders and walk around the Civic yelling chocks, ices. I used to fiddle a bit with the girl. No, you might get me wrong when you say that. The girl who was the daughter of the bloke I worked for, she had a sweet tooth like me, and that's what I mean to say by fiddle. We used to fiddle the change and pinch the chocolates. Eventually, that girl became my wife. Although, I guess you don't want to hear about that at this stage. Well, being at Chiltern Flats meant to say that I was a city boy, and a friend of mine joined the Territorials, and the reason he joined the Territorials was so he could ride horses, and so I joined it. And we used to go to North Head every Tuesday night, dressed up in pantaloon, spurs, bandolier, and strange enough, walking downtown, going over in the ferry, we never got any flack from the hoons that used to be around, I guess, in those days.
You were still going to school at this time?
No, I was 16, I'd left school.
When did you leave school?
I left school at, well, I had 2 years. I had 2 years of grammar. So I left, I guess, 1931, wouldn't it? 31.
And you would have been how old?
About 16.
16. And what made you leave school? Or decide to leave school?
Well, I got the taste of life out of school by selling chocolates and earning a bit of money.
What did your parents think about you leaving school at that early age?
My mother was okay about it. I don't think my father sort of cared very much.
So the decision was really up to you?
Well, the decision was up to me. Without wanting, I don't want to cast any blame on anyone for my leaving school. But one thing had a hell of a big bearing. I can remember walking up Shorten Street one day, and I had my exam results in my bag, and halfway up the hill I met my father coming down, and I said to him, "Look, Dad, I got first in the class." And he said, "So you should have." And he continued walking on. So I guess I became disillusioned with the whole effort. But anyway, selling chocolates at the Civic, I guess, was the start of a new life for me.
What events were happening in those early school years when you were more perhaps at secondary school, but anything that you can remember in those school years that was going on in the world or in the country that stood out?
Well, no, not really, except the riots in Queen Street. Vividly, you remember them.
Tell me about those.
But it just shows that I was always a chicken at heart, because being in the Territorials, when the riot started.
When were the riots? What year?
1931, round about there. 1930, 31, 32. Yeah.
Was there more than one riot?
Well, not really. It lasted for 2 or 3 days. But,
The law lost control, did it?
well, it started down the waterfront, and these watersiders were edged on by a few agitators, and they just decided to march up Queen Street, smashing windows and just creating a disturbance. But getting back to be better, I guess I must have been a coward because all the territorials were banded together to keep the peace sort of thing. And a mate of mine, we finished up hiding in Albert Park.
Because you were scared?
Oh yeah, what a girl. Only a kid. And, but it was a flash in the pan as far as people are concerned. I can remember...
How did you feel about the riots? Were you disgusted or no opinion at all, really?
No.
Not.
Oh, no. Oh, I think kids today were more worldly than we were at that stage. No, a riot was just one of those things.
Did you used to read the newspapers?
No. And very, very little radio, because don't forget there was no radio to speak of. I can remember the first radio that ever came into our house was in Carlton Gore Road, and I can remember my mother and father sitting up in bed with a pair of earphones on, and my father juggling with a crystal set, but there was no amplification at all. And it wasn't until Shorten and Flats that we ever heard radio.
And what did you do for entertainment in your early years?
Well, as I said earlier, I used to make my own fun, and apart from riding horses over at North Head and the Territorials, I learnt the Morse code and became very proficient in sending and receiving Morse, to the extent that a friend of mine used to live in a flat upstairs, a bloke called Billy Every, and we rigged a line up between his flat and mine, and we did most of our conversation, held most of our conversations through Morse code. Naturally, being at that age, I was starting to learn how to swear. Well, I always knew how to swear, but I never used to swear very much. But we started to swear over the Morse code, and bad words too. And one of the tenants upstairs happened to be in the P&T department, who could read Morse just as normal conversation. And he came down and complained to my mother that if we didn't stop swearing over the Morse code that was going through to everyone's radio sets, we'd be in dire trouble. But I had my Meccano, and I used to make all sorts of things with my Meccano. Being very mechanical, everyone locked themselves out of their flats, which was quite often. I was the one that used to get in by various means, even to climbing round on the 5th floor from one flat to another. In those days I wasn't frightened of heights, and Shorten Flats was a big building about 130 feet high, and I used to put all the radio aerials up for the tenants. No fear of height whatsoever. But I played with my Meccano well after the time I met your mother, and I guess I was 16 or 17, and I still played my Meccano.
What made
One of my greatest regrets in life that none of my kids, my boys, was ever interested in Meccano, and yet I bought them one each. Never followed me at all. And I guess that's the way things are in life.
What made up a modern household in those days, in terms of appliances and?
Well, there were certainly no fridges. We had an electric stove. We had a gas califont. You know what a califont is? A califont is a cylinder that's got running water in it, and it's heated by a jet of gas. And used to have to light the gas jet, say an hour before you decide to have a bath, and that's the way you got your hot water. And going back earlier, we never had a califont. We never had an electric stove. And my chore of a morning was to get up and light the fire, because from the fire we got heat to boil the kettle. Kids today don't realise they're alive.
Did life seem
my
tough?
My kids didn't even realise they were alive, because they never experienced life without running hot water.
Did life seem tough because of
No,
that?
because we knew no better.
You know better.
Yeah, the old axiom: what you haven't got, you don't want. And
How did you have a bath?
well, we had to use the califont, and before the califont, we had to boil the water on the stove and take it out basin at a time and put it in the. Well, we didn't actually use a bath. We used to have a tin tub, and we used to bath our. You know.
Did you all have a bath in the same water?
Oh no.
How often would you have a bath?
Well, once a week.
Because of the convenience of, or inconvenience?
Oh, no, that was the norm. But we used to wash our feet and wash our faces, but you didn't need hot water to do that. But to have a bath, boy, you need a bit of warm water, particularly in the winter. But we never had it, so we never missed it.
Did you do much reading in those later school years?
Very, very little.
Because you couldn't get books, or you weren't interested, or?
Oh, I don't think I was interested. No. But we gained knowledge of the things that counted. For argument's sake, I can recall coming back from the butcher's when we were in Carltonville Road, and the Auckland Star was being delivered, and the headlines were the Napier earthquake. But there was no radio to tell us that there had been an earthquake.
Were you shocked
Didn't
by the
really-
headlines?
The only earthquake I'd experienced when I was only a kid in Rotorua, and that just broke a few dishes. I didn't realise that the earthquake had the power to destroy and kill, as it obviously did. And I couldn't believe the aftermath of the earthquake, where the sea at Napier had receded about 3/4 of a mile out to sea, and then the foreshore of Napier today
was where the waterfront used to be, and the water just cleared out to sea and never came back. Oh, I didn't know much about earthquakes then. But there was no communication to any great extent. One thing I do remember having to do was going to the butcher's for my mother. The bread man used to deliver bread. The milkman used to deliver milk, not in bottles. He had a horse and cart, and he had big cans of milk in the tray at the back of the wagon, and he used to put your little billy out, and he would ladle out a pint or a quart, whatever you wanted. What reminded me of the butcher, one of my favourite meals today is thick end of neck of mutton cut into chops. And in those days, that was a stable meal. And I used to go to the butcher and vividly recall asking for 6 pennyworth of thick end of neck of mutton cut into chops. Now, 6 pennyworth is what, 5 cents? Mm-hmm. Imagine the difference in the value of money then and today. And incidentally too, talking about people calling around to your house, we never used to have flush toilets. We used to have a can in the shed out the back, and the nightman used to come round 2 or 3 times a week and take the can out and replace it with a clean one. Boy, haven't things changed, huh?
Did it smell?
Well, if it stayed there more than 2 or 3 times, it would have.
Did it have water in it?
Yeah, it used to have a little bit of water in the bottom, and we used to put in Jay's fluid.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no such thing as toilet paper. We used to get the Star or newspaper and cut it into about 6-inch squares and thread a string through one corner of the paper and hang it up in the dunny. I don't think you could do that today, because in those days there was no big typeset in the ads. The ads were just little lowercase ads. Just imagine today wiping your behind on a farmer's ad, particularly if it was painted red. Mm. In those days, as I said, we knew no better. And we used to just take things as they come. I remember one night going outside, looking up in the sky, and my God, there was a star moving. And the star moved right across the sky and then started to blink. I wonder what the hell had struck me. And it wasn't until 2 or 3 days afterwards, one of the boys at school said, "Did you see that aeroplane flying over?" It was the first time I'd ever seen an aeroplane, at night. Today, if you didn't see an aeroplane in the sky at night, you'd wonder what the hell had happened.
Your school friends at school?
Yep, I had very few friends that at primary school that I could really call friends. And I guess it was the same at secondary school. I don't think I had one bloke that I guess I could have called a friend. But there was one bloke who came from a very rich family. His name was Johnny Gibson. And he used to live at Alverstone Flats. And he used to double me home on his bike from Grammar to Shortland Flats. And when he was about 17 or 18, he was driving a car over in Belmont, and he knocked over a pregnant girl and killed her and naturally the baby. And his parents shot him off to England with what they call a short service commission in the Air Force. And that guy finished up being one of the war heroes in the Battle of Britain, having been credited with knocking down 15 German planes. He finished up being personal pilot for Lord Montgomery. But I guess that would be the only bloke I can vividly recall knowing at school.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing, isn't it?
Mm. It is.
Yeah.
What are your earliest memories about girls? Or when you became aware of girls?
I'm buggered if I know. Or it might have been at, I used to go to Sunday school. As a matter of fact, I used to go to church 3 times on Sunday. I used to go to 11 o'clock service with my grandmother. Then I'd go to Sunday school at 2 o'clock, and then to the evening sermon again with my grandma. But getting back to girls, there was a little girl in our Bible class, pretty little thing by the name of, oh God, I've forgotten her name. But I used to buy pink cashew nuts, I think they called them. You used to suck them, they're highly scented, and they used to turn your tongue pink and red. And I can remember taking a mirror up to Bible class, and during the very solemn moments of prayer, I used to hold this mirror up, stick my tongue out at just to make a giggle. I guess that was a very romantic way to remember girls.
You were interested in her?
Pink tongues. Huh?
You were
No,
interested in
no.
her?
I was interested in my Mikala,
I see.
and I was interested in creating, making things, but I never worried about Sheila's.
Did anyone tell you about the facts of life? Or did you find out
I
yourself?
found out from school. No. I didn't know anything about the facts of life. But when I became a lolly boy at the Civic Theatre, I sure learned about the facts of life, because those lolly boys were not from the same background that I came from. I guess you could say I had a protected background, but these guys were waifs. they used to smoke and pinch money. I guess I just learnt about the facts of life, and I didn't have any desire to learn. Again, the old axiom: what you don't know about, you don't want, I guess.
But when you did finally learn
Well,
what it was to know,
boy, that was a long bloody time. The first flutter of youth, I guess I had, was with Mum. As I said, I used to work for her, and she was a pretty little girl. I used to call her the English Rose. I met her when she was 15, and I was 16, and I was still going to school because I can remember when the rest of the lolly boys were tearing around the place. I used to sit and study on one of the couches just by her lolly bar, and
you were still at school in those days.
I was still at school. I was just at the last of my schooling, and the lolly boys and I used to joke about who'd take Isabel out, and I asked to take her home one night. She used to live at Hispano Flats. That was up at the top end of Myers Park, and one of the lolly boys bet me a cigarette that I couldn't kiss her, and I won the cigarette. I kissed her, and
You were smoking by the stage.
I used to buy penny cigarettes. Yeah, I was smoking, and your mother used to smoke too. Should I have said that your mother? Because at this stage, she wasn't your mother, was she?
It doesn't make any difference for that. We're going to be talking about her a little bit later on, so about how you met and things like that.
Yeah, so we both used to smoke, and it just it was nothing very serious. I just used to walk her home with the night. Used to have the odd cuddle up at the upstairs at the Civic Theatre until we got caught one day, and her father lashed out at me.
Would you consider yourself?
I guess you could call it puppy love.
Would you consider yourself to be a typical teenager with typical problems, or
No.
did it ever strike you that
No,
life was hard during your teenage years?
No. I had no problems in my teenage years. Not to that extent.
What was your complexion like?
Always to have quite a few pimples when I started to shave. But I used to fix those with peroxide. I was always a reasonably smart sort of a kid. I was never a slouch.
Mm-hmm.
Never, ever. And I used to dress as good as the other kids. Yeah.
Okay, looking at your early working life, and I presume you started work before you became a territorial.
Yeah.
Okay, so what was the first job after, assuming the lolly boy thing, and was the lolly boy job your first job?
Well,
full-time job?
Yes, it was. Well, it was a full-time, part-time job with no future.
But when you left school, you were a lolly boy and nothing else.
I was a lolly boy because because there was nothing else, no other jobs available.
And Jack Duckworth
Boy.
employed you?
Yeah, Jack, he employed me. Well, I was employed before.
What did you earn as a lolly boy? Do you remember?
Oh, about 15 shillings a week.
Enough to live on?
No,
Not enough to
I
live
used
on.
to give my mother 10 shillings.
So you would still have to stay at home.
Yeah, I stayed at home. I had no thought of ever leaving.
Could you have gone out and got your own flat or something on
No,
15 shillings a week?
Unheard? No, it was unheard of. Flatting in those days, unheard of. No.
So you'd generally get married before you'd move out of your family home?
Yeah,
Hmm.
I did.
That was the norm.
That was the norm. I didn't move out of my family home until after I was married. It was the normal thing to do.
Did Jack Duckworth treat you well as a lolly boy? When he didn't catch you playing around with his daughter?
Well, he only caught me the once. Yeah.
How many of you were there working for him as lolly boys?
How many years?
No, how many were there of you working for him?
Oh, about six,
Six.
7.
Was the Civic in 3 levels at that stage?
Yeah.
Or 2?
No, it was 3 levels, including the winter garden,
Mm-hmm.
because getting back to your question about my first job, was the office boy at the Civic Theatre was a bloke called Des Locke, who became quite a prominent radio announcer in latter years. Very poshy voice, this guy. But he went over to Smith and Covey's and he charged up a couple of pair of shirts and a pair of beautiful trousers on the Civic Theatre account. And he got fired for it. They offered me, the Civic Theatre offered me the job as office boy, which I took. And they also gave me the shirt and the trousers that he pinched. And now I had those trousers for years and years and years. Because no way could I have afforded beautiful trousers like they were.
Who owned the Civic in those days?
The Civic Theatre was owned by the Civic Theatre company. It was the shareholders were what they called the Kelly gang. That was Nathans, L.D. Nathans, Arthur Nathans, Campbell and Aaron Fred, you know, the brewers
Mm-hmm.
that used to own the Strand Arcade. And they had a managing director by the name of Colin Anderson. And although I was only an office boy, I learned a hell of a lot about business dealings, business etiquette, business toughness from this guy, Colin Anderson.